Hi guys, we're live on Biryani by Kilo, and today is a very interesting and important session. I'm going to go live with Anuj Rakia. He is the founder for Raw Pressly. I think all of you might have really tasted, enjoyed the Raw Pressly drinks. It's my favorite. And why it is more important for us is also Biryani by Kilo also stands for a lot of freshness, quality, consistency, and Raw Pressly is also espousing the same values. So I think it's going to be a great conversation, and I have a great respect for Anuj as an entrepreneur. And we'll discuss a lot of things around brand, building brands, categories, and challenges entrepreneur faces. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So Friday evening is the favorite time for a lot of people. Friday 5 o'clock, and we should end the week with a bang, with a great conversation. Thank you so much for everyone for attending this, and we'll be taking some questions also. And we already have some questions, and which we'll be taking. So, ready to welcome. Oh, Rob Presley is already now. Five dot. Hi Anuj.
How are you?
Good, good, good. My face, voice, everything clear.
Everything is clear. I hope I'm audible and visible as well.
All good, all good. And the painting behind you is quite good.
Thank you.
So I am, ready to have a lot of fun today, and I think and ready to learn also a lot from you. I think I have loved Raw Presley ever since I have drank it, and a very consistent customer. And we have seen your journey as an entrepreneur also. So first of all, congratulations on building a great juice brand in India. It's not easy to build a category. So a lot of the other juices like fruity maza are just fruit-based drinks. So this is a real juice, and I think the brand is now known all over India, and I think it's close to 100 crore brand now. So congrats, I think, for doing a
Thank you.
great.
I must return the compliments in letting you know that myself, my family, and most especially my entire staff at the office are big fans of BBK. And they poured on your meals at during lunchtime. And I think they love coming to your office to have meetings as well so that they can enjoy all the new varieties.
So when you say BBK, I think let me also say you mean biryani by kilo, and we only not do kilo, we do half kilo handi. So I think I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah.
So also we do kebabs and kormas and filling. So I think thanks. So how do you want to structure this? I want it to be freewheeling this conversation more about building brand entrepreneurship.
Well, typically what I've seen is depending on the audience, I always find that there are, sorry, a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking to understand how to start a business, maybe why we started a business, what are the challenges in starting a business, growing a business, what has the journey usually been like, what kind of advice or tips can we actually give them. So, maybe you and I can take turns in doing that. And, my suggestion would be, Vishal, that typically, founders like to talk a lot. And, we usually leave no time for everyone else. I thought that maybe in a 60-minute discussion, maybe we can spend about 20-25 minutes and leave more time to answer everyone's questions. And, kind of make it more interactive for everyone else, to make it a more inclusive discussion with those that have joined. So that would be my suggestion. I leave it to you.
So completely agree. So it's around 5 o'clock now, almost 5:05. So till 5:30 we'll do a discussion to give people a platform or a basis to ask questions. And from 5:30 to 6 we'll take questions. How about that?
Good.
Great. Great. Do you want to start? I think, if I can say Raw Presley started, not only you've created a brand, you have also created a category. If I can say, when you started in 2014, maybe the idea that a fresh juice can be sold on a retail platform or online might be a little weird or a little out of the category, right? Was it true in 2014 when you started a category and both?
Yeah, I'll try and spend the next few minutes just kind of telling you from start to, what were the intentions behind beginning Raw. For those that may not have, may not have followed our story, I am not, from the F&B background. I am not from the FMCG background. Um, I have been a consumer of food and beverage products and brands as much as anyone else in India. I spent a little time in the US for some studies and some work, and in that I had a chance to also see what the American markets, were selling to people, what companies and brands were innovating, and when I came back to India, my journey was, I think some of the things that happen in everyone's life become important to kind of phasing their, forming their journey. And I suffered some sports injuries, which taught me a lot that it's not just physical rehabilitation, it's also nutrition, which is extremely important to any sort of recovery, whether it's mental, issues or physical issues. Nutrition, what we eat, what we drink plays a very large role. And more in India, having a younger population, a more working population, we realize that convenience is a very important thing in people's lives. And gone are the days in the generations before where we had time to all cook our food and buy our ingredients and, do that all over again. So I think what I noticed was that the beautiful part of India is that we have amazing fruits and vegetables. As an agrarian economy, we have access to some incredible produce, but unfortunately the infrastructure causes a lot of wastage. And in India, if you are, young or old, rich or poor, man or woman, I think everybody has gone to a juice center and had a Ganga Jamuna juice, or had an anar juice, or had something which we grow and then it comes into the market, and we all know what fresh juice tastes like. The question that I asked myself, and then I asked about 1,500 people, from in the survey, was, what type of juice do you want to drink? And everybody who answered me, nobody said, I would like 10% concentrate with 80% water with a little bit of sugar, and why don't you throw in some colors and flavors and additives in there? Everyone said we'd like a fresh juice. And my simple, epiphany, I guess, was that the unorganized market in India is significantly larger than the organized market. We can buy fresh fruits, we can make juice ourselves, we can buy fresh juice from the juice centers, but when we go to retail, we cannot buy a fresh juice. So something as simple as that, I understand that we created a category in retail, but Vishal, we actually did not do anything that new in terms of changing habits, because most people in India were already making juice or buying fresh juice from the train stations and the street corners and the bus stops before.
But not through a retail store as FMCG product.
Not through a retail store. So the category was created in retail, and the real problem that we were trying to solve was that too many people in India today are drinking sugar water, and the other brands are marketing it really, well to fool those consumers that this is, say, juice, or this is good for you, this is healthy, this was, made fresh. And these words, of low calorie and fresh and good for you and healthy have been very, misappropriately used. And so I think what any entrepreneur likes to do is create change, change which has high impact, change which also affects us personally. And I thought the problem that I'm solving is large enough to leave everything and start this business. So this is maybe the beginning of my journey. What about you, Vishal? What led you to starting? Is it that you just love biryani? Or?
Well, but I'll tell you very briefly, it's quite similar to you. So I did my engineering from IIT BHU, then I did my master's from New York, and I was IT entrepreneur for a lot of years, and then I went into finance, hedge funds, and private equity. So when during my private equity and hedge fund days, we were investing a lot in Asian consumer side and also F&B. So, but what I noticed is we don't really have a McDonald's or a Burger King or a PF Chang or a Chipotle from India, right? They might, of course, there are a lot of mom and pop shops, or there are chains in Bombay, right? Or chains in Paradise Biryani might be very popular in Hyderabad, or Swati Snacks in Bombay, but it's not a pan India or pan worldwide chain. So then he said the biggest problems in F&B industry, particularly in the restaurant industry, is the food services industry, is that the high capex and the high rentals. Two things really kill the industry. And 5 years back, when we were, I was wearing my investor hat that time. Like, we noticed the food delivery was going through the roof in US, in Europe, in China, Meituan, LA.me, or in US, Grubhub, and same thing in Singapore. So we said that we need a category which is delivery friendly. First of all, biryani is a complete meal, like a pizza, and healthier than pizza. It's very versatile, and we have authentic recipes for 500 years. Hyderabadi biryani by kilo, we do Hyderabadi biryani, Lucknowi biryani, Calcutta biryani, and Calcutta biryani, Lucknowi are very less spicy. Hyderabadi is a bit spicy. But the only problem was no one was focusing at biryani category. The problem with F&B also is the food services is that you generally have a lot of good restaurants, very good restaurants, but they don't really have ever developed a SOP, standard operating procedures, or right hiring or right training. So it comes out the same every time, what a McDonald's would have done. So we said we'll take the best of both. We will do, and also what people were doing, what they were making biryani in 10, 20 kg pots and selling it in bulk, freezing it, reheating it when the order comes. So pizza can be made fresh in 5-10 minutes and delivered in 30 minutes. But biryani can, as a nature of the product, cannot be made fresh in 5-10 minutes. So we said we worked a lot on back end first. We said we'll make biryani fresh for every individual order, and only after the order comes. And we will deliver it in the same handi in which it is dum cooked. So it takes us 30-35 minutes after 5 years of perfection and technology. But we get the same biryani in Hyderabad, in Kolkata, or Pune, or Ludhiana, or Indore, or Jalandhar, in same kebabs. So now what we have created, so biryani is a very good delivery category. Now people talk like it's the biggest, highest selling product on Zomato, Swiggy. But 5 years back when we started, biryani was not really a category as such. So, and also it doesn't have an incumbent leader like a burger or a pizza, like a Burger King or a Domino's. So the space is vacant for an India-wide or worldwide leader with the right management and right positioning. So I think as an investor and a strategist, I said, okay, this is the right category. Then then Mr. Kaushik Roy, who's my co-founder and a great, partner for last 5 years, he comes from F&B 25 years background. So it's a great team. We will talk about the teams later in the conversation, complementary skills. And I think we are now 40 outlets in 20 cities in India, around 100 crore turnover. So I think we're proud of that. So I think that's like the way you have done, I think. So I think we have both companies have created categories, that we created a brand and something, what India needs now and what we can all now. I think Raw Pressly can go worldwide now, what you have created. Right? Biryani by kilo, we can go worldwide now over a period of time. So,
yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So sometimes when you're creating this category, right? Of course, people said we need fresh juice, right? It's easy, like people told us they need fresh biryani, right? But we realized initially we used to take 90 minutes, 2 hours to deliver to make fresh biryani. So it was not easy explaining to people when people just wanted in 30 minutes. So in your case also, I'm sure that fresh juice, okay, you made, but the shelf life would be less, right? There'll be to put it on retail, to get people to pay that money, extra money, the supply chain. How difficult were those challenges in initial years?
Yeah, extremely difficult, Vishal, and it still is difficult. I think when I think we were taking a larger risk, and maybe we were a few years ahead of the market. In India, I think that consumers want something of a higher quality. They are not always willing to pay for it. And what has happened because of that has been that the infrastructure for cold chain in terms of warehouses, in terms of logistics, and also in terms of, our neighborhood retailer may not even have a fridge. So the cold chain was never really developed in India. And because of that, most of the products that we had to have a long shelf life because we couldn't keep them fresh, inside the into a cold storage, etc. So what we really had to do was actually not just develop a product, but create an entire supply chain solution to manage a fresh product. And no matter what the strength of our product was, if the weakness was in the supply chain, then the product would get affected. I'll give you a simple example, would be if you go to buy ice cream, which you expect to be in a freezer, but if your retailer turns the fridge off, then you're not going to get the best quality ice cream. And
Especially, I think they turn it off at nights, right?
turn it off at night. And sometimes if they tell you that it is 15 degrees or 16 degrees, it may be 25 degrees, and so it's not also always working properly. So what we really needed to do was actually create a product and then also actually build an entire supply chain. So that is a challenge. That has been a challenge over the last 6-7 years. It continues to be a challenge. But I feel that, those are the kind of challenges that we have resolved. And when you're creating a category, we've also, started, been able to tell other brands and inspire them that, look, don't just take a shortcut when you make a product, that you have to give it, that you have to think of what the retailer is also going to think, what the consumer also really wants. And I feel that at Raw, we've been actually able to do that, not take a shortcut in just making a juice which has got concentrate inside it, or which has sugars or artificial preservatives or anything like that. So I think the what I would kind of say is that the journey is just not mine. I think whether it's yours or other people who are listening to this, I would always say that look at the gaps in the Indian market. There will always be challenges to fill them up. People will always ask you, how big is the market, and will it grow? Why isn't anyone else doing it? But I feel that entrepreneurs need to actually, look at the trends and create some, positive impacts in newer markets. Otherwise, we as consumers will always be eating and drinking things in packaged food market, which is unhealthy for us. I think we have a responsibility as food and beverage entrepreneurs that we have to be able to provide convenience without compromise. Not everyone in our generation and the next one is going to be able to cook all the time. So how can we make the packaged beverage and food market one which is also healthy, which they can also trust, which they can also give their children, and that's really what that's what's worth taking on the challenges that we have taken on.
Faith is very important. What you are creating is required and it's good, right? So that faith you had, and I think I had, we had, the juice we were creating doesn't have a concentrate or preservatives or things or colors, and we knew the rice we are using today, it's a 200 kg, 2 years naturally aged rice. The meats we use are butchered at a central, so we know what we are buying. The spices we buy are handpicked from. So same, I think, ethos, and that's what, I love talking to you, that despite having challenges, you have to stick to the vision. It might be a small market initially. It might be difficult supply chains. Like we have to send our handis everywhere to all the outlets. All our, butchered meats, which we believe in, things like that, rice. Supply chain are challenges. And also educating the customer is a challenge too, and also to get them to pay higher price. And in our case, larger delivery time, instead of 30 minutes, maybe now, in your case, lower shelf life of the product, right? So they will have to live with that. It's not, if I can say, a product which will your product you cannot put in the fridge and forget for 3 months, right? So it is supposed to be consumed in 30 days or 45 days, right?
That's
And so those are the challenges. Any other challenges you think you particularly faced as when you were starting or now? Of course, a lot of them, but on a
yeah.
broader level.
I think we can take the whole show up if we talk about challenges.
Okay, let's take. I think we'll come to the challenges because it's quite big. I think it's quite big, and I see your point.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people ask me, and they must be asking you, what it is to create a brand, and what does brand? Does a brand mean a logo to you, a tagline, a packaging, a design, or it is core values of a product, consistency, communication? What does it mean, and what do you think, how will you quantify or subjectively judge Raw Presley as a brand today?
I think it's all the things you've mentioned so correctly, Vishal. I think it's not any one thing. The standard marketing definition would be the perception that a consumer has about a product. But I think that there is a lot of intangibles, in a brand, more than just the packaging or the advertisement or the marketing around it. I think that the brand carries the soul of, the entire, team, the people, the energy behind the product, what it tells a story. It's much more than just a logo and much more than just design. And I think what people leave out usually when they talk about brand or marketing is they leave the consumer out. And I think that the brand, more than the product and the people behind it, needs to also include the consumers. And we always think that the consumer is a third party, but the consumer is not a third party. The consumer is the most important, person in the entire journey. And if you put the consumer in the center and build all around this consumer and try and tell them your story, you're making a product for them, how does it get to them? Why do you source the way you source? You're speaking about your, 200-year-old rice. What are the efforts and the challenge? At the end of the day, while we do it for revenue, we do it for profit, we do it for scale, but actually you're really doing it to put a smile on someone's face. You're doing it and there's an emotional, connection with the consumer that needs to be made. I think that entire emotional connection is the brand. Functionally, we can all have the best products in the world, but if we don't have an emotional relationship between the product and the consumer, then I don't think we have a brand. And I think that the companies that do that, build that relationship well, are the ones that today we call brands.
No, I think very well said. So it's an emotional connect between the brand and the consumer. That emotional connect. So in a way, anything like a husband, wife, or a mother, son, anything, where you will go beyond a transactional value. So you might not calculate this is the transactional value of this product, but it's more than that. It might be due to the consistency of those core values and that narrative that brand stands for.
That's right.
Right. In Raw Presley's case, it would be the freshness, right? And no addition of preservatives, colors, and something. I love your Valencia orange juice, right? So so I always look for it. So there is I know I will get and every time I have drank. So that consistency and that values will finally define a brand and that emotional connect. But is it also, would you say, the part of it is package? Of course, it's communication, right? Is it packaging, brand ambassador, digital marketing? A lot of people confuse it, but those are the extensions to communicate those values and that emotional connect to the customer. Is that so?
I think it's all of it. I think the real stories are behind the scenes, and we don't often tell those stories. I think that, of course, we have to amplify the awareness of the product and the company. So we use influencers, etc. We have social media pages in it. But, I feel like the brand is more about the stories, Vishal. When you and I were speaking earlier, I think all the viewers would also like to hear from you, how you source your rice, the masalas, the spices, what gives it that touch that you feel it's at home. And beyond the product, you may have taken certain efforts on packaging and making sure that it reaches people in a certain condition, You know, that when they have it, what do they experience? I think that these are the stories that people don't make advertisements about. And at the end of the day, the influencer marketing and design and packaging, you can get a lot of agencies to actually just do it. But the consumer today is very, very smart. You know, they know that any company today can just get some brand ambassador and get some design agency and, you know, run a social media account. But something is missing, you know, that something is missing part is actually where the story comes in, you know, and that's the real truth that I would actually say, you know, you have done so well, you know, at Biryani by Kilo, and so many other, you know, entrepreneurs in the ecosystem have done so well. And I think those are the ones that actually stand out, and consumers will always remember. You know, maybe we've made a lot of mistakes, also lots of mistakes. You know, and when you're trying to do something new, you may make a mistake. I think that if the relationship is strong, which is what I'm calling the brand, the consumer will also turn around and say, it's okay if you made the mistake. I will still give you another chance. Maybe your food came cold. Maybe your juice went mad. Tell me why. And the thing is that our passion to our work is so high that you will talk to the consumer yourself and you will say, tell me what happened. Let me understand it. Let me solve the issue. Then you will go back to the consumer and say, look, this was the problem. This is what I have done to solve it. This is, and so you're building this thing, right? Which happens, like you said, in any personal relationships that we also have. To me, that the large companies don't get an opportunity to do. Procter and Gamble has unfortunately never going to call me, you know, or a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi. And I think that today we live in this digital age where personal connections become more and more important. So I feel that this is the energy that entrepreneurs bring, you know, to the table, and which is really the bigger X factor which has happened over the last 10, 15 years around the world, which earlier, maybe 20 years ago, was not happening, you know. So I feel like that's the real soul that's there in everyone.
Well, I think you said it quite well. If I can try to reiterate or see, I think somewhere, of course, the emotional. I think there has to be some core values, beliefs, passion of the founding team, which a customer will connect to, and we have to treat customer as a very intelligent, sensible person rather than something on which a design agency or a brand ambassador can, spray some. So there has to be a real relationship, and those core values, once that emotional connect. And I think the narrative and the stories are very, very important, like you rightly said. And but I think, like, also in the digital world, like you're saying, in last 20 years, the lives have become very impersonalized, the Facebook lives or Insta lives or whatever. So the real connect is missing. And that's what maybe people are looking in brands also, the personalized real touch. And that's where maybe multinationals are finding it hard, if I can say, to create real brands, especially from 0 to 100 crores or $0 to $100 million, right? Maybe after that, their distribution network or financial muscle, they can, take the brand further. But I think it requires good founders and entrepreneurs for that 0 to 100 crore or $0 to $100 million journey everywhere in the world.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. That's very well said. Yeah.
What about team? How much value you would provide? Of course, we all know. And I think, if I can ask you, I think you don't have a real do you have a co-founder?
I didn't start the business with a co-founder, but I have many people today in my top senior team that I believe they function with the same passion and commitment as founders. So yeah, while I've been a single founder to start the business, but many people have joined along the journey. Shuja is one, Srijit is one, and a large part of my team actually functions like they are the founders of the business. So yeah.
So I think that's how I think as a founder is the most important thing is can you create that culture and passion in the team. So if you can highlight, like, what you looked in your first hires, were the people from F&B industry, juice industry, were they from IMs, were they your friends? Who were the top 10, 20, who were the early top early 10, 20 hires, and what did you look for them? And if you have any lessons to learn from them, that part.
Um, in the beginning, there is very little um, money to afford the very experienced people. So, and it's also very difficult to hire people who are very specialized in the beginning. So you have to do a lot of the dirty work, and that's the work that today nobody remembers and today nobody sees, But to do dirty work, you have to share it with someone that you can trust. So I always used to look for people. Number one, whether I can trust them, whether they more than their experience, what is their attitude towards life, what is their aptitude level, when or towards things that they may not know. Are they willing to learn? Are they hungry? Are they passionate? Are they committed? And to me, I think these characteristics of people was more important than their CV. Then, of course, as the business grows, you require people with functional expertise, with experience. And, I think building a team is an art of its own. I have been extremely lucky to be surrounded by people who have taught me, how to do things and build the business. So I would leave it at that, which I think trust is very important in the beginning. Honesty, trust, passion, commitment. These things are important when you're starting something from zero. But then after that, you need people who are really going to deliver things, and they're going to be right about what they think. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, and intellectually, as you grow, you meet people who come with all the logic and all the answers and all of that stuff, and they'll say, I did this there, and I have this degree, and I have that, But in the end of the day, you need people who are going to give you a solution, rather than just tell you what the different problems are. And I think those are the people that I always look for, that who are the ones that are going to actually, add towards who's going to be right, I don't need people who are the smartest people. I just need people who are going to come and deliver solutions to us. So what about you, Vishal? What is your journey with team building then?
See, first of all, I'll say, I knew from day one that food services is a very operationally heavy business. Every every order, So I come from a entrepreneurship, but IT, MBA, private equity, so hedge fund. So I understand the macro picture, strategy, finance, marketing, but I knew that there has to be an ops heavy guy, right, from day one. So, I am Kaushik Roy, who's a co-founder, really fits that well. So I think always look for a complementary skills, and I think a lot of times people look for people who are similar to them. Similar, I mean, if you are from IIT, you look for people more from IITs, or people, if you are, so I think you have to have the same values, have to be very important, but people with a very complementary skill set, right? What you might know, I might not have, you might not have, and to be able to handle a constructive conflict. Because if you have people from different backgrounds, in socio-economic, this, and educational or career-wise, it's good to, I would say, the core values have to be same, the attitude has to be same, but I think to be able to handle some level of conflict within the founding teams, management, I think is also quite important. There has to be a room for dissent.
Absolutely, very well said. I think the constructive conflicts are the ones where you find solutions. You're absolutely correct about that.
And I think everyone has to know that it's a meritocratic organization. Anyone can say anything without any malice. If as long as it's not about with any malice and with right intent, anyone can say anything. That at least in a startup, it cannot be very hierarchical. Of course, the captain of the ship has to be one. I agree. Someone has to take the final calls. But during the discussions, that energy has to come out of positivity, of enthusiasm, that has to be nurtured, I think.
Correct. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
So I think already 5:30, but tell me one thing which a lot of people, questions have come while I was looking also. How difficult it was to, then we'll start taking questions one by one. We're already at that time. But how difficult as an entrepreneur was difficult to raise money? I think you put some of your own money in the beginning. How difficult or easy was it for you to raise money? And I think you come from a banking and a consulting, so it might have been a bit easier, if I can say. I don't know. I'm
You know,
asking you.
well, I think that many ways to look at this. Over the last 10 years, the startup industry has found it easier to raise money. Maybe 10 years prior to that, there wasn't really a very mature venture capitalist or a private equity. And largely private equity would work with companies that were already, in the market or were with profitable and wanted to go IPO. So I think that the early stage investment market has grown tremendously over the last 10 years. Now, in their growth, they follow trends. And, obviously technology has been a large trend which people invest behind. So we actually, started the business at a point when I think that the food and beverage trends were growing. I would say we were one of the first handful of companies to actually, say that, hey, we can raise money from institutional investors. So I think in that we almost became a poster child, in the beginning to be able to attract that capital from very global investors. So in the beginning, I think it was very tough for the first year or two. Like you said, it was self-funded, all of that energy. Then I think you start getting some traction. I think over the last 3-4 years, the investment market has been difficult with consumer slowdowns, in the country. I think that there have been some, recessive trends in consumption across food and beverage. I think there have been some checks and balances now that have come in, given that a lot of the money that has been spent on a lot of the businesses, in tech or in consumer, is kind of, just spread across many. So I don't think there's been a focused level in many ways. So I think that I have found it difficult, and I have found it easy, and I found it difficult, and I found it easy. So I think different phases of your business come in. I don't know how many people will understand this on the call, but there are pockets of investments today in India in the market which are gaps, which are holes. So if you look at raising capital between $0 to $3 million in the beginning, there are a handful of companies that are very focused in consumer F&B that can actually do that. Then when you move from $5 to $10 million, there's a lot of people that will start coming in. If you go from 10 to 20, there's very few. If you go from 20 to 40, as 20 to $30 million, which is your growth stage investment, your private equity investment, then you'll start seeing larger players. So age and stage actually has a lot to do with when to raise money, who to raise money from. And then of course there are market forces at work which one needs to consider. So good businesses can be invested in, bad businesses can be invested in. Actually, we've seen a lot happen in the last 10 years. But in your business, for instance, there are dark kitchens, there are cloud kitchens, which is a complete food delivery model. The economics of those have actually come alive today, with the entire delivery market having opened up. So today, that is a very, opportune place for an investor to put money into. Maybe 7-8 years ago, if you wanted to do just a home delivery, office delivery kind of business, it would have not been such a great place to actually put money behind. So a lot of changes have happened in the way that actually investment has been flowing. And I think timing is everything in life, right, Vishal? Either you're doing the right thing at the right time, or you're doing the right thing at the wrong time. So that's how I would actually look at the investment market today.
No, on just a light note, I think it's always good to be at the right place at the right time. So sometimes people say you never know the right time to just stay at the right place. The right time will come. But but I think you rightly said. I think 0 to 3 million, a bit angel investor VC money is there, and I think 5 to 10 million, if I can put it in Series A, is also quite a bit. But the 10 to 25 million Series B. From Series CD, the Carlyles and everyone, they start coming in.
Absolutely.
So I think So I think, and because also the investors see, once you're a 100 crore company, you are neither a VC company nor a PE backed company, right? So I
Right.
think 100 is a tough spot. So either at 100 crores, you should be quite profitable for a PE to step in,
Right.
or not easy for a VC to step in at that stage, right?
Correct.
But I think it's
Hole.
a more
It's a big
it's a
hole.
more big hole there. So it's a more technical part. So we're going to stick with this thing with like 20, 30 minutes of questions. So Pulp Juices is saying, is starting fresh juice business now is the right time? Sir, please tell us in Bangalore.
I think starting a fresh juice business is always the right time. I think you should just, it depends what type of business you're looking to start, what type of product. The market is growing, and there is a lot of tailwinds right now behind doing something which is healthy, natural, and fresh. So whether it's juice or whether it's any other food and beverage product, I think as long as your values, of the product are in line with what consumers are looking for, I think it's the right time. And I think COVID, some of the questions that been seeing over here, are that the world has been impacted by a health crisis, and so obviously a lot of more consumers are willing to pay for things which are healthy and nutritional, and also people are looking much more closely, at what will help their immunity and what will be good for their family. So I think anything which is in line with those things today are going to do very well.
Okay. And I think this one person said Unicorn Girl 2654. Please say my name. So I've said your name. And how do you educate audience when you have a complete new product in the market? So if you have a new product like you had, what will be the way to educate the customer this fresh juice? What communication would you use? I just read the question.
I think that your packaging is the best real estate to have a conversation with the customer. Um like a lot of companies focus on marketing, as it's called, but I think that marketing, you can also waste a lot of money. I think having conversations with customers, so you go direct to home, you put the right things on the packaging, you ensure that you're reaching out to them directly. Customer service should be very good. And I can go on, but I think that the idea of a new product requires education. Remember, nobody in the world wants to be educated. Okay, everyone wants to learn, but nobody wants you to be the teacher. So because if you start talking, so what you really have to do is make it fun, make it interesting. Find a way, to tell them the more technical stuff, but maybe in a more friendly manner. And you have to say things which are memorable. Say things which are catchy. Say things which are fun. All good, no bad was the 4 words that we use to describe our product. It's our philosophy. It's how we want to live life. And then I think people want to listen to you if you're fun and interesting and doing something new. So I think that you have to, like anything else, right? If you want to walk into a room and you want people to listen to you, you can't bore them. You have to be fun. You have to be young. You have to be catchy. You have to be interesting. Maybe sense of humor is important. You have to charm them in a certain way. So I think that those are human, personal traits also come to product, and brands.
So you're saying what you would do in personal life to communicate yourself, you would use the same strategies for a brand, and packaging is a very good space to start if you can use fun and quirky in a good way. But you also mentioned customer service has to be good. So let's say in a product, in FMCG brand like you, Rob Presley, you would have a customer service number. How many people really call every day for customer service or in a month? Like, give us some stats. A lot.
Different. So when we started, we were just a director to home business. So the
Hmm.
number of calls could go into 400-500 calls a day at that time. And so it's a lot to manage. And at that time our tech platforms weren't as well developed. And then as we've become a more distribution to retail kind of a brand, that part of the business still exists, but now most of our customer service happens via retailers. But I think just being prompt, and customer service is not just about the size of your team or the technology platforms and all of that stuff. I think it's just about the intention that you don't ever want to leave a customer's question, query, complaint, whatever it is, hanging. And I think that those are, again, the values, right, Vishal, that we were talking about, you know. So that's essentially what I mean by customer service.
Okay, no, no, great. So I'll take some of the questions which the teams have earmarked, which we thought are good.
Yeah.
So I think something we have already addressed. So I think one of the questions said from Denver Pereira, I like to take the name. How do you build effective communication with your customers? But I think you've said that, right? Then there is from the sorted guy. What risk do do a startups can face, and what can be the execution challenges? Do you want to take, because some of the people have written about, and I know it's a very big field, but do you want to take some of the challenges which entrepreneurs should avoid, might be broad, in a very broad way? Of course, this supply chain, the technology.
Look, your biggest risk is failure, you know.
Right.
And I think any entrepreneur, whether it's food, beverage, tech, any business that you're doing, even if it's a family business, right? The biggest risk that one must be able to accept is failure. And you must understand that if you're doing what you're doing because you are true to what you're doing, it's perfectly fine if you succeed, and it's perfectly fine if you fail. And if you fail, that you will get up again and you will do it all over again, because we will all do things right sometimes, we will make mistakes sometimes, we will do. So I think that it's easy to talk about functional areas, right? Like supply chain, this, that, those are challenges, those are not risks. The risk really is that you will, if you are a single founder or have co-founders, depending on the stage in your life, you will have to risk almost everything. Please don't think that there is any such thing called work-life balance. There is, it's 100%, is the minimum that you will have to put into what you're doing. And at the end of it, hopefully you've created something, hopefully you've learned something, hopefully you've added some value to the consumers. And if you haven't, then that risk is worth it, and then you do it all over again. To me, I think that those are the biggest risks. And if you can take the risk that you don't mind, winning, and you don't mind losing everything just because you think you love what you're doing, then you're, to me, that's the first risk that any entrepreneur needs to really understand. Everything else is just about solving a problem.
So I think very well said. First of all, differentiate between risk and challenge. And the biggest risk is failure. So in a way, to accept it is, you have to accept it from day one. Would you say to founders, when you're starting something, you have to be ready for that risk, no matter even after 5 years or 10 years, that risk is always on the table.
There's not a single night that you won't sleep wondering about it, So
even despite, taking such a big journey, quite humble of you, And I think that's a risk. I'll take some other questions. This is from Sid Patil. What would be 3 main tips for entrepreneurs willing to enter F&B, particularly F&B? Any tips? These are very cliched questions, but whatever.
I don't know about tips, but I can just help with saying that the market lacks innovation. So look to, I think that the consumers and they require innovation. If we were just going to make another Me Too product, then either you need to have very deep pockets or a strategy that no one else has. But I think that at the product level, F&B has a lot of innovation. There is a lot of white space, that can be covered in those areas. Those are also challenging. It also has risks, but I feel that those are the areas where you're more likely to win. If you're going to make the next Parle G biscuit, I don't think you're going to be able to beat Parle in doing that. So I think look for those areas is what I would actually say. The other thing is be crazy about your product. Before all of the brand and before all of the other, good stuff that we're talking about, I think you have to be crazy about your product. And specifically in F&B, please be very well researched with your compliances, with your mandatories. Please ensure safety. of your product, please make sure that you study the FSSAI manuals. Please understand, your quality guidelines, whether you're HACCP certified, um, because, we also live in a country where people sometimes take shortcuts when they make food and beverage, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a packaged food brand, so and so forth. So I think that, that is something that you must, cover your back on, but also make sure that your product has the highest, quality standards. So yeah, those
No,
are
no,
the three.
I can't agree more. And just to encapsulate it for people, that you said innovation is the first step, right? It cannot be a Me Too product. And second thing is you really have to have passion about it. And third, you know, be follow the regulatory framework, right? F&B, great. I completely. So some people, I think they're seeing great tips. Invincible Crown is saying. So I think I'll take it further. See, you are in a lot of different metros: Ahmedabad, Kochi, Bangalore, Hyderabad. So people are asking. I read some questions. How do you launch? So have you seen behavior, consumer behavior different? Very different. A little different is okay. From Kochi to Ahmedabad to Hyderabad to Bangalore. Any learnings in different metros when you launched? Can you share?
I think we in India, the different regions have different cultural habits, and we've also seen that certain flavors can work in certain, maybe it'll grow more quickly in a certain market first. I think within that, apart from the geographical difference, there is also different channels, and the same human being functions, approaches a product or approaches what they want to spend money on very differently when they are inside a five-star hotel, or whether they're inside an airport, or when they're inside a cinema, or when they're at a high-end food store like a food hall, or a Nature's Basket, as opposed to when they're at their general trade neighborhood provision store. This is the same person who will be willing to pay. Uh, I always use the example, Vishal, of tea. Or green tea has been a revolution, right? In India, it's just hot water and a tea bag. Um, we are willing to pay, 10 rupees or 5 rupees for it when we buy it as a box at home. We're willing to pay 150 rupees when we sit inside a restaurant, for that hot water and tea bag. And we're willing to pay maybe more inside a hotel. The product is the same. So I think your launch strategies need to consider the cultural effect of which cities you're in, as well as the channel that you're actually going to be focused on. And I think that beyond that, if I get any deeper, it's very specific to how beverages function. In your case, your ready to eat will function. So yeah. Have you found? What about? What do you think about that?
So I've seen different brands, like in F&B also, which were doing great in Mumbai, but when they came to Delhi, they didn't do well, right? So I think first of all, brands have to take it very seriously, that they cannot take it for granted that if they are successful in a city, right? Certain biryani companies have been very successful in Hyderabad, but not in Delhi NCR or Mumbai. Same thing for a lot of different. So, but I think first of all, companies have to be very careful about the cultural differences. Let's say a biryani to meat ratio, which people in Chennai will expect, might be different than people in North expect, right? Also, like companies who are taking a 10,000 square foot retail place, food services, biryani chains or pizza chains in Hyderabad or Bangalore, because they can afford to take 10,000 square feet space because the rentals are more 100 rupees a square foot on high street, broadly in Hyderabad, Bangalore, compared to Mumbai and Delhi where they become 200-300 rupees. So you have to have leaner formats, right? You have to have leaner formats in Delhi, Bombay. Also, so if you don't, and it cannot be one size fit all. It has to be a nimble team, founding team, and the management team, which understands the nuances of formats, cultural differences, like you said, channels, right? Like the modern trade channels might be different in Bombay compared to a Kochi. There might not be too much modern trade there. There's more general trade there. Or e-commerce might do much better. So as long as you are cognizant of different channels, how they're different. In Australia, modern trade would be, let's say, 90% compared to India, where the modern trade is 10% of the whole trade, right? So so you have to be very cognizant of those things and cannot have one size fit all. So the team has to be nimble and cognizant. Also, I think the branding and marketing in different cities, the communication should also be, you cannot again do one kind of communication. So as long as the teams are cognizant, I think, but you have to be very sensitive to all this.
Got it.
Got it. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes left. Please start Sri Deep Cleans package again here in Pune.
Yeah, sure. We'll reply to that customer when we are.
And you also doing raw press, you also doing protein shakes and almond milk. How has your experience been that, and how big are those categories? If you can enlighten, like.
We are as a business in 4 categories. We are in the juice category, which is cold pressed juices. We are in the almond milk category, which is not, it's not a dairy product. It's just almond milk. We are in the coconut water category. I say that's nariyal pani. And then we have a milkshake, which is a dairy product, which is fortified with protein. We look upon ourselves as a liquid nutrition brand. The cold pressed juices give you vitamins and minerals. The milkshake gives you protein. The coconut water gives you minerals and electrolytes. And the almond milk gives you good fat and fiber. So essentially everything other than carbohydrates, we are giving you in the liquid, format. And we believe each one of these markets is, a sizable market, but more than the overall size of the market, the growth rate of these markets is very high.
Very high.
And that's what we are really trying to see, that while traditional companies look at market size and market share, we look at what percentage of the growth is going to be delivered by raw pressity. So we have grown the 100% juice category. We have grown the coconut water business. We have grown the almond milk, category in India, and now we're going to be growing the entire, protein ready to drink market through our milkshake product.
Wow, it makes me think someone can get all the proteins, vitamins, carbs. Of course, you will get somehow. Someone can live off raw pressly and have a. But also tell me, is the almond milk category at the stage what fresh juice was 5 years back today?
No, it's much smaller.
It must.
It's much smaller. It's a far more expensive product. But again, Indian people have always had badam ka doodh. But badam ka doodh has been, also mixed with milk and has been had as a celebration on occasions. Now what is happening is we have a growing plant-based, community. We have lactose intolerant people. We have people looking for different nutrition. They may not like the taste of milk, of basic milk. So, I think this category is growing. But what we are also seeing, from the US and from Europe and many, even in India today, in Bangalore and Bombay especially, is that the non-dairy market is, as an alternative, is going to grow very quickly. And it's already, someone was asking if we have oat milk, of course, oat milk will be on the shelves, almond milk, etc. So almond milk is a more expensive product. I think as the business grows, you will start seeing more economical prices, for the almond milk. But today it does cater to the market that is very much loyal to the product. It will need to expand a little bit more to the people who want to try it as well. So, yeah.
And any other new products which Raw Pressly will be launching you want to talk about?
This is not the year for new launches, in my opinion. I think that the ideas are plenty, Vishal. I'm sure if you and I start a drawing board of trying to do new things, we'll have so many. But this year, I think we all need to focus, on being sustainable, on doing the right things for our business, for the planet, for our consumers, for I think just being conscious and sustainable this year is more important, I think, than launching new things.
Sid07 is asking about the kombucha market in India. Any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I know you've asked this question several times. I've seen it come up. My thoughts on the kombucha market are that it is a difficult market. Um, it is a very interesting product. It has grown in a massive way in the US and other parts, obviously. I don't say that it won't grow in India, but I think that we have three-fourths other steps, before kombucha will grow. I think the problem with kombucha is that the fermentation process will always require it, to be in a cold chain. And again, the market size for a kombucha also requires it doesn't exist. And India is functionally a tea drinking country. Remember, it has taken us decades to switch from chai to green tea. Not even switch; it's still a small percentage of the market. So kombucha is good if you keep it local. It's good if you have local production, local distribution. If you do a subscription-based business, I think it's always a great way to really do a test market to see how many subscribers will you really get, to understand loyalty, so you can understand your cost of customer acquisition as well as your lifetime revenue from one customer. Um, but it's a challenge. I don't think it won't happen, but I think it will take a little more time. I'm all for innovation, as I've said, but I think, there are maybe three or four other things that need to happen before kombucha will grow to that extent.
So I don't know if you saw there's a turmeric milk also someone is asking. Spice chai, turmeric milk, will you be doing
Yeah,
anything?
we are not in the tea business. We have one product which has turmeric with some coconut milk and some, fresh juice with in it. Specifically as a milk product, we will not be doing turmeric milk, but we have added turmeric in some of our products. Yes.
So any question, I don't know if you saw, but I think if I have to take a last question, it'll be more about COVID. How can entrepreneurs, what are your thoughts on handling businesses, startups during COVID times, and a bit about safety if you can address about your products?
Yeah, I think COVID has taught us, you know, some lessons on, of course, quality, safety, even when we reopened, after the lockdown, how to make sure that people are safe. But the thing about COVID and is that there is no 100% way for us to actually save ourselves from this disease. Even those that have stayed safe have been affected by it. And I think that that's a large lesson, on what we can do to actually build up our immunity, what we can do to be safe, not just as a business, but even in our homes. Many businesses have been impacted by COVID. Ours has been impacted by COVID. I would tell all others that whether you're a good business or a bad business, how much cash you have on your books is the most important thing. So if you're a great business with very limited cash, it is going to affect you. If you are not that great a business and you have a lot of cash, great, happy for you. But yeah, I think that the strategy on this would be whoever can have more cash and comes out of COVID stronger will probably catch up with their competition just because they're able to survive more. So many businesses have been on different ends of this, depending on when they raised money last, or whether they were in the market or they had already raised the money or not. So unfortunately, COVID has kind of leveled off many things. New businesses to start post-COVID, I think the nutrition space has become very interesting. I think the nutraceutical space has become very interesting. I think anything to do with healthy or in some way adding to immunity, etc. has, and I think of course quality, safety, everyone does, right? You can order anything from anyone, and they have to actually follow those as first principles. But I think in terms of industry trends, things which are moving more towards better for you kind of products are actually going to grow more.
And would you like to say, of course, raw pressy products are more than safe, but would you like to assure anyone who's watching that they have been taken care, they are safe?
Of course, I think like I said, I wouldn't want to use this platform for any kind of self-promotion in that way. But I think that goes without saying that the brands that actually do build that relationship and do, I think the extent to which you will have to go to actually make sure that your product, in terms of sourcing, in terms of production, in terms of packaging, in terms of logistics, warehousing, last mile delivery, you have to follow, these
What,
principles of safety.
Garbage, repeat your question you're asking, but can you repeat the question, Garbage? Yeah, please. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll wait for that question.
No, it's okay. I think you can finish what you're saying.
Yeah, I think there's absolute full assurance of the quality standard, safety precautions that are taken by both our brands, I'm sure. So
Yeah, for sure. So see, I also like to say a minute thing on the COVID thing is, like every time in life, uh, every 10, 20 years, when we talk about passion as founders, as innovation, and what teams we have built, it all gets tested, and it has been tested in COVID time. So, and I've met many founders, we see a team. So I think it has been important if to test the resilience of your teams and your product and your customers. If the story you have believed and told, how resilient or real it is. So, and you have to believe it even more during COVID times. Of course, the resources would be less, the supply chain will be even more difficult. But I think if I can say, like I'm humbled by uh, our, the resilience of our team. Some, not only Biryani by Kilo, some of the other teams I know, founding the entrepreneurs. And so I think stick to your dreams. I think, and like it's cliche to say the tough times don't last, tough people do. But I think also, and these times will also determine big winners. And if I can use the term, not so there will be not like the diversion will be huge in the next 6 months in every category, in every business. Some businesses will do exceptionally or quite well. And there, the founding teams and the management, I think a lot of it is also to do with the communication internally and externally. So you have to keep communicating more and in the right way with your internal teams, your external customers, and stay resilient, stay even more focused. Of course, some companies might require some pivoting during these times, but you have to stay more resilient, more focused, and very positive. I think in not even the weakest moments, you have to allow, of course, we all have our doubts, but we cannot let it linger on more than a normal, healthy time. So I think we have to stick like that, and I'll stay positive. Of course, these are all cliched words, and have good friends and
yeah.
good friends. And but any question you would like to take, I think I'm happy with the conversation. Anything you want to say or take any question you might have read?
No, I think that this is a great initiative, Vishal. I want to thank you for, you know, uh, taking the initiative to actually do this, and tell a bunch of the other, viewers out there that there are so many opportunities. Um, I for one would be very happy to take more questions. You can email us, you can DM us. That's not a problem. I think what the thing that I've learned is that sharing our journey and our experiences, the things we did right, most importantly the things that we also did not do well, and making sure that we can kind of pay it forward, right? Because I remember when I started, there was I really wish that there were so many more people that I could just kind of call up and ask, what to do, how to do it. So I think the younger entrepreneurs are always looking for good, advice and all of that stuff. So I, for one, would always like to say that, anything that we can do to help and grow the business and the community, be very happy to do that. So it's a great initiative that you've done this, Vishal.
Thank you so much. And I echo the same thoughts. So please send your questions to Raw Pressly and Biryani by Kilo. Happy to take them and where we can help. But I think just everyone, and thank you so much, Anuj, to come on the Insta Live, and wish you and Raw Pressly all the best. And thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you, Vishal, for having me. Wish BBK all the
Yeah, have a great weekend. Bye.
thanks. Bye.